Hey Wargamers, we got some pretty exciting news last week at the Warhammer World Championships, including the announcement of two brand new Tau characters, which personally I think is the most exciting thing to come out of the championships. And I gotta say, they aren't the characters that I was expecting. In fact, I wasn't expecting characters at all. So the fact that there's two of them is pretty surprising, and that they are totally new concepts that didn't have any precedent before. So it's not what I was expecting at all. Very exciting. We're going to break it down today and talk about not only these models, but what it might mean for their rules. So let's start off with what the heck did they announce? They announced the Twin Lance, which are two new Tau characters, Sunseer and Scatterflame. Yes, they are very thematically named, but if you need help remembering which is which, Sunseer is the one that has the fusion blaster, just like the Sun Forge suits, and Scatterflame is the one with the larger flame detail on the base, but also has an scatter ion weapon. So if you need help remembering, that's the deal. And anyways, these two suits are coming out presumably as a single unit, and they will be coming out sometime in the future, presumably in 2026, right? We're not going to be announcing things more than a year in advance, so sometime in the first half of 2026 seems reasonable. And Sunseer and Scatterflame are intended to be the new exemplars of Mon-Ka inside the Tau Empire. So if you're a little forgetful of the lore here, right? That basically Commander Farsight is the exemplar of the Mon-Ka, but he is basically exiled from the Empire. He's persona non grata there. And so the Empire itself needs a new archetype for the Mon-Ka philosophy. And so they have found that here in these two characters, Sunseer and Scatterflame. And their backstory is actually pretty interesting too. They are the two remaining suits out of a bonded group of crisis suits. So they were the Shazvray to their commander, Darkflame, and Darkflame died due to a Genestealer Patriarch attack. And so yeah, their commander died, and it left these two behind, and they kind of just went berserk. And so they have a very aggressive, very hit and run based philosophy to war, and they are the new exemplars of Mon-Ka because of that. One of the interesting details on these suits, which by the way are just really cool looking suits, right? Like they are definitely something above and beyond what we've had before. Some of the visual elements of Farsight's suit mixed with some of the visual elements of the Cold Star suit, but then a whole bunch of stuff in there that's just brand spanking new, and I'm here for it. I think these look amazing. But there's some elements of their design here that actually reflect this backstory very well. One of them is that they each have a fragment of the bonding knife that would have been carried by Darkflame. So if you notice, Scatterflame here I think has the hilt, and then Sunseer has the blade of the bonding knife attached to their hips. So they're carrying that relic of their fallen commander with them. But then you also notice that both of these suits have some very interesting design choices in the armor, right? So there's the white part that seems very Tau-like, and then there's this dark bluish portion, and that has some elements to it that is very strange, including kind of the perforated armor here, but also that some of it seems to kind of be strapped onto the armor above or below it. And so I think what these are, maybe I could be totally wrong here, but to me this almost looks like they are parts of Darkflame's suit that have been co-opted by Sunseer and Scatterflame to enhance their own suits. So they're carrying Darkflame with them in multiple ways. One, in the literal way of her suit being superimposed onto their suits, but also with the bonding knife. And so I think these two things together are really like just kind of a cool a cool design choice, like from a storytelling perspective, but also make very cool looking models. And part of the reason why I say this too is if you look at which parts are blue on each of these models, they're on opposite sides, right? So you could kind of take them apart and put them together to create a whole nother suit. Of course, not literally in the case of the models or anything like that, but it's not unreasonable, I think, to look at these parts as potentially coming from a third suit that have been salvaged and put onto these suits as like a reminder of what's come before. And so I think that's, again, just super cool, very metal, and yeah. So I hope we get more clarification on that, but I love that design element right off the bat. The rules could be absolute garbage, and I would love these suits just because of the headcanon I have about that. But as far as rules go, these guys are supposed to be experts on hit and run tactics. They have these new Warmaker battlesuits that are built to allow them to get in, deliver their shots, and get out. That's the whole deal. So they probably have some sort of built-in jump shoot jump mechanic or some sort of disengage mechanic. They have to be fast and they have to be able to move in and out. And so I think the jump shoot jump mechanic might be a really nice way to do it. And it also would fit very well with some of the close range weaponry that they have. And we'll look at a little bit more at the specific weapons that they have in a minute here, but overall these are designed to be short range suits. And so I think from a design perspective, incorporating something like a jump shoot jump mechanic into the abilities of these suits of this pair would actually work really well, because one of the bigger issues with jump shoot jump in the past, like in previous editions, is that you could have suits that had a bunch of missiles on them, long range weapons, and you could just jump shoot jump behind terrain and be very non-interactive with your opponent. But because these are short range weapons for the most part, and they're built to be up close and personal, these are not things where you would be advantaged to do that kind of non-interactive gameplay, right? You would be encouraged to get up close and personal, and jump shoot jump is going to be much more interactive, much more balanced in that scenario than it would be where you just have some suits hiding behind a building that just jump out to shoot you and jump back, right? So I think that fits both conceptually and from a design perspective. Having something like a jump shoot jump natively on these suits would be really cool and would work very well. Looking more specifically at the Warmaker battlesuits themselves, so we have Sunseer here, right? And we notice a few things. One is that, again, these are close range specialist suits, so they got to go fast. If they have a built-in jump shoot jump, maybe they're able to move 12 inches each way, right? Something like that. They have to be able to get there fast, but then they also have to be able to retreat quickly. And so that'd be interesting. If we look at the shield hand, which again, these two suits are mirrored, right? So for Sunseer here, it's the left hand, but for Scatterflame, it's the right hand. On this suit, it's the left hand. So if we look on that shield hand, we see something that looks very much like a pulse blaster, which is super cool. And it's actually being held, right? It looks like it's like a pistol that the suit is holding, not something that's mounted onto the underarm there, which is cool. Something that we've seen from people like like Piper makes, and from other fan art. Like, we've seen this design in Tau conversions before, and it's cool that we would see this actually enacted here. I'm excited to see more details on this particular aspect of the suit. But the pulse blaster here, it could just be a pulse blaster. Like, a pulse blaster weapon itself is just a good weapon and would be a acceptable sidearm for a crisis suit or a battle suit, right? But we could also see this maybe being like a double pulse blaster or something. You have a little bit extra oomph to it, something like that. But even if it is just a pulse blaster, I think that's a nice little accoutrement on top of the already spicy suit. They also come with drones that have pulse blasters, not carbines. So there's 2 drones that come with the unit, and they have pulse blasters. So add them all together, that's a fair number of pulse blasters, and that could be a nice little asset for this unit as well. One of the big things that stands out, of course, is that shield. That's called a neocapacitor shield, and you see elements on the shield and the suit itself. These small little circular elements, and these are not just shields, right? They're not just going to give a 4++. They convert energy into a concussive blast. So as the suit gets hit, it takes some of that energy and redirects it back to the opponent. Of course, we don't know what this is going to look like in terms of rules, but it might be something, really simple, like whenever one of these suits rolls a 6-up to save, it does a mortal wound to whoever is attacking them, and that, I think that would be a really streamlined way to do it. Of course, a more thematic way would be something like you accumulate tokens or something, and it does something once you fill up a pool or something like that. But I think like on a 6-up to save or 5-up to save would be even better, of course. That it does a mortal wound to the attacker, and that'd be cool. Like that's a nice rule, right? What's not to like? Looking at the specific war gear here, we have Sunseer with the Fusion Eliminator. So this can't just be a fusion blaster, right? I mean, obviously it's not, otherwise it would just be called a fusion blaster. But a single fusion blaster or even a stronger fusion blaster wouldn't necessarily be very interesting from a gameplay perspective or very effective because it's a single shot. And so this has to be some sort of fusion variant that has more shots and probably is a little bit stronger. So maybe has, Melt of 4 or something like that, right? And so we would expect that this is just a special fusion blaster, right? It's not going to be something like the Ghost Kills fusion weapon, the fusion, collider? But because it's just not as big, but it's going to do something special, right? Same thing with Scatter Flare. Scatter Flare has an ion scatter cannon. So this isn't going to be the ion raker, right? This isn't going to be the Ghost Kills weapon. But it's going to do something else. And because it has the word scatter in there, that to me suggests like just more shots, higher volume of fire. So I'm imagining this being something like a 9-shot cyclic ion blaster with maybe a little bit extra AP or something like that. Again, not expecting a huge increase in power of an individual shot, but just more shots here is my guess. And if you combine that with the Fusion Eliminator and you overcharge it, right, you could do like some serious damage to heavy targets or light targets either way with this single unit. So I think there's a lot of play potentially here, depending on what the actual rules end up being. Of course. I mean, I could say anything, right? I'd say like, oh, I think this is going to be great, but it depends on the rules, right? Of course. But and the points. But I'm excited. I think that these are going to be really interesting no matter what, and I'll be picking them up, of course, as soon as I can. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here, right? Like I'm happy that these things have been announced and that these models look freaking sick. They look awesome. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you excited about these suits? Do they miss the mark for you? What are your thoughts on this? And also I want to know if you think I'm onto something with the old suit being salvaged and put onto these suits, or if I'm totally making that up. Let me know. Do you see it too? Let me know. As always, thanks for watching and happy wargaming. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This channel, this video are made possible by my supporters over on Patreon, so if you enjoyed this video, consider joining our community over there as well. Additionally, we have Invasive Wargaming models back in stock, probably for the last time. There's the original Invasive Wargaming model, plus 2 new sculpts as well, so head on over to the Invasive Wargaming Etsy shop and check those out.